Is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're willing and able, please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are now on item 2 of the agenda, our land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Ohlone people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Ohlone land, the land that Pinole sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. And we'll go to item 3 of the agenda, roll call and city clerk's report. City clerk, good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Sasai,
Here.
noting for the record that Mayor Pro Tem Tave has not yet arrived. Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Toms.
Here.
City Manager Young.
Here.
City Attorney Casher.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Stone.
Here.
Mayor and Council, the agenda was posted on Friday, July 11th at 10 a.m. with all legally required notices. Written comments were received in advance of the meeting, posted online, distributed to the council and staff, and are available in the back of the council chambers for public review. Does the council have any conflicts to report this evening? Seeing none, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we have one closed session item. It's item 4A, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Government Code 54957, title City Attorney. City Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Not on this item, no. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. With that being said, we'll reconvene into open session at approximately 6 o'clock p.m. Thanks. All right, good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:05 p.m., and we will reconvene into open session. There is no reportable action for the closed session, and so we'll move on to item number 6, citizens to be heard. City Clerk, do we have any speakers for tonight?
Yes, thank you. Ann Torabini, followed by Bob Kopp.
Are you ready? Okay. Hi, I'm Ann Terabini, and I live on Orleans Drive, and I'm here about the sewer project on our street. We've been told over and over again that emergency vehicles would be able to pass through. We have a man at the end of the street who is on oxygen and has a nurse that comes every other day, and he's been in and out of emergency over the last couple months. So last Wednesday, we met with the city and the contractors, and we're promised that the city would monitor parking. Since then, we've had 2 emergencies, not for the man down the street, but for other 2 houses. And in both cases, the ambulance and the fire trucks could not get down our street. They had to walk to the houses. And in both cases, it was because of cars that were illegally parked. So I'm hoping that maybe the city can do something about this. On my way here, I could just barely get through because they park their construction equipment and they're not supposed to park on the other side. And that's the problem. Another concern is the broken pipes and the possible undermining of the cliff at the end of Orleans Drive. It appears that neither the city nor the contractors knew about the slide problems on that hill, which is about 50 feet from where they're going to be digging. There's also a damaged drain there that we've asked the city to fix a number of years ago. And that drain empties into the hillside. So up to now, the pipes that have been broken from construction, the water runs down Tennant, or down Orleans Drive to Tennant. But now where the contractors are is in the middle of the street, and because of the topography, the water, when they break a pipe, is going to run towards the end of the street, towards the hillside. And so if the water stopped quickly, there might not be that much damage to that hillside. But in the past, we've had to wait for East Bay Mud to come to turn off the water, which has been over an hour in some cases. So we're asking if possibly the firefighters could be trained to turn off that water. They haven't been able to turn it off on the other parts of the street. But anyway, that's my questions, and I hope you can help us with these problems. Thanks.
Thank you for the comment, and we have your contact info, so I'll follow up with you personally after this.
Okay, great.
you.
Thank you.
Bob Kopp.
Yeah, thank you for letting me talk tonight. I want to give you a recap on the car show. We had the most cars we've ever had in the 6 years I've been in charge of the car show. We had 320 classic cars at our car show. And we're going to be giving out, like we normally do, donations to different groups to a tune of $12,124. We're down over almost $4,000 from last year because we had to spend some money that we wasn't planning on so we could get the cars in and out of the baseball field on the grass. We really need for the council to approve putting a driveway in there. It will also benefit Public Works because they can go into that end of the baseball field and the grass, and we don't allow people to go across the infield because naturally it stirs up too much dust. So everybody goes over the temporary driveway that we put in every year, and we'd like to have it so that it'll be a permanent deal. We put in the gates, we bought the gates, we installed the gates that are right there at this driveway we would like to have, and I'd really appreciate if somebody would take a little time. I can go down and show them exactly what we need and why. because these cars are low, and when they try to get over the curb, unless you have a real nice setup like a driveway you have at your home or a commercial driveway, there's no problem. But them being low creates a big problem for them. And some of them you can see scrapes on the sidewalk itself after they've got up on top of it. So we like to have that, if possible, set up for next year. There was a request that maybe we have more cars next year. And there are ways that we can have cars, but it won't be able to be in conjunction with our event. But there are ways that we can have another show that will not involve, say, one police officer and 2 maintenance guys, and we do everything will be on the outfield, on the grass, or in the park. So we don't have to close down San Pablo Avenue or anything like that. Right now, we need every bit of room we have. If you're down there walking around on the baseball field, it was pretty crowded. So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Will do. Thank you. We'll follow up. Appreciate it. Any other comments, City Clerk?
There are no more public comments.
All right. We will then move on to item number 7, reports and communications. The first one we have is the mayor's report. Very excited to have attended the July 4th event that we had at Pinole Valley High School. Just want to thank staff for all their work, from our officers to our public works staff to everyone here in City Hall. It was a really meaningful event, and of course we had our drone show, which was great, and received great feedback from folks who are prior military, and just appreciation that folks who have PTSD could go and attend the event here in Pinole, and that be inclusive. And also, honored to give the key to the city to someone who is really meaningful to the community. Robert Walker Jr., you might have seen his picture here coming in today, but he's the longest tenured employee in Pinole history, and great to see his family there, and some who flew from out of state as well. I attended the Contra Costa Mayor's Conference last week, and it's always a great time to just connect with all of the mayors in Contra Costa about the pressing issues that we're dealing with at this time. And also, we received an update from our District Attorney, Dana Becton, who gave an overview about the work that she's been doing in her office for the past year, but also some of the important initiatives that she's working on to advance for this next fiscal year as well. And also, the thing that's always top of mind for us here this week, of course, is our waste collection services. And so thank you all for bearing with us, and Public Services has been so great to give us updates every single day about this, and thank you, City Manager, for updates as well. Right now, we have limited trash collection routes running through Saturday. And so Public Service advises us that we place our garbage cans outside in the driveway with also extra bag trash as well. And there's no additional charge for extra trash bags that will be placed out there and to be collected. And the trash collection services, the pickups, it might occur on non-scheduled days. So again, please keep your carts out there until they're serviced. Staff has been doing an amazing job to coordinate and to make sure residents have a means to get their waste collected. So of course, 651 Pinole Shores Drive is a site that's open 24/7 for folks to drop off up to 2 bags of household trash. Again, no bulky items, no e-waste. And there's also an additional drop-off location for folks who need it, up to 4 bags of household trash at 1 Parr Boulevard, Richmond, and that is the Golden Bear Transfer Station. The hours are Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. No bulky items or e-waste as well there. And so also a great thing that the city's provided so far is up to three free heavy-duty trash bags provided here in City Hall, Senior Center, and Public Safety Building. So for folks who want to get that, I was here in the office on Monday, and quite a few folks took advantage of that, and that's a great thing. That is my report. Item 7B, mayoral and council appointments, we have none. So 7C will go to City Council Committee reports and communications. We'll start with Councilmember Thoms.
Okay, good evening. I have two items to report on, and that is the governing board for the Green Empowerment Zone. I'm on the working group for marketing for that area. And this is, the Green Empowerment Zone is mainly along the northern waterfront, both in Contra Costa County and in Solano County. It's an area where we're really looking to promote businesses in clean energy and transition from, the refineries. Two of the main refineries are transitioning over to different fuels. So we're taking a look at how we can transition the workforce into cleaner energy. So on the subcommittee for marketing, we're looking at what are some of the aspects that we can use in marketing our community for those businesses, particularly through a website. And then last Friday, I'm an alternate for the governing board of the Green Empowerment Zone, and I attended the full meeting, and that's where we had a discussion on the policies that we're looking at for the Green Empowerment Zone. So there will be follow-up both with staffs of all of the jurisdictions. We're trying to identify what are the positives of the area, and there are lots of positives as far as our geography, our transportation, our workforce, and then what are some of the negatives. And that, could relate to the cost of living in the Bay Area. There's some concerns about the time it takes to entitle new businesses, but we're trying to work together on a regional level to address those. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Murphy.
No report this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez-Rubin, please.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening, everyone. Since we last met, I attended two meetings. One of them was the WestCat Board of Directors meeting that met last Thursday. A couple of business items there was to approve the West Contra Costa Transportation Authority's, WestCat's authority, disadvantaged business enterprise triennial goal of 2% for federal fiscal years 26 through 28. WestCat, as a federal grant recipient or in anticipation of receiving federal grants, is required to submit a goal, and the board approved a 2% goal. That means that in whatever anticipated contracts coming from the federal government, at least 2% of those would be going to disadvantaged businesses. The other business item is that at the beginning of each fiscal year, the board nominates the chair and vice chair, and we ordinarily rotate. There is representation from the City of Hercules, City of Pinole, and the unincorporated areas. And this time around, it was the turn to nominate someone representing, our chair, and then for vice chair, someone now representing the City of Pinole. So the chair will be Councilmember Grimsley from the City of Hercules will be serving as chair, and I will serve as vice chair. So the fun in that is that I get to head the Finance and Administration Committee whenever we meet. And so that was for WestCat. The other item, that same evening, I got to hear some of the good work that our staff is doing related to the wastewater treatment plant. I am the alternate representative for the City of Pinole on that subcommittee, and so learned a bit about the different metrics that are used in regard to the how the water that is collected in the storm drain system, then it eventually leads to the bay, and the indicators of how clean the water is before it reaches the bay. And I am very much speaking colloquially because there are technical terms that the staff use to present their report on that. But also found out that the staff is going to be a bit more proactive is the word, to have all of us who are both representatives of Hercules as well as representatives of the City of Pinole, including the alternates, know about what is coming in the next quarter's agenda. Next meeting is, I believe, October 2nd, and as I sit on that subcommittee as alternate, so in case our regular representatives aren't there, had a little preview as to the kinds of business that is discussed there, and hope also to get a review of how our wastewater treatment plant operates. So we're all, as representatives on that subcommittee, welcome to tour again if we haven't in recent years, because there have been some improvements at the site. And there's also a need for improvement in a number of different components of the treatment plant. And some of those improvements appear on our capital improvement plan. So they are big projects for which there will be bids going out, and it's important that we become aware as representatives of what those are and how they actually are implemented. Those projects happen and how eventually it leads to better use of our treatment facility. So that's my report, and happy remainder of July. Since we're going to be taking a break in August, everyone, happy summer.
Thank you. Council requests for future agenda items. Do we have any from the council? Seeing there's none, we'll move on to item 7E, City Manager's Report. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I do have quite a few this evening, so please bear with me. All right, so first off, I also want to thank staff for a beautiful July 4th event. It was wonderful to see so many community members there, and it really was a lovely event, so kudos to everyone who made that possible. We are also currently recruiting for the TAPS committee. We have one vacancy, as well as recruiting for our Community Services Commission. We currently have 3 vacancies. I want to give kudos to the city clerk's office. They have created a new online application portal, which is now live and found on the city's website under the city clerk's page. If you are interested in applying for any of those committee positions, the application deadline is August 21st. So please contact the city clerk for any questions you might have on how to apply or about the position. There will be no regular city council meetings in the month of August. Our next regular city council meeting will be September 2nd at 5 p.m. On Tuesday, August 5th, the Pinole PD will participate in a National Night Out Caravan. This is different than the National Night Out event that occurs in October. This will be on August 5th from 3 to 5 p.m., and officers will visit neighborhoods that are participating in this particular event. Right now, we have 2 locations confirmed, which are the East Bay Bluff Apartments on Marlesta Court and 1778 Canyon Drive, but we would love to have more, so please reach out to our PD if interested. On Wednesday, August 6th, we will be hosting our first Citizens Academy / City School event. Right now, it is currently full, but we are still taking applications for the wait list. So if you are interested, please be sure to submit your application so that you can attend. And those dates will be August 6th, August 13th, and August 20th from 5:30 to 7:30, and they'll be here in council chambers. I also want to give an additional update on the current trash strike. Thank you, Mayor, for already handling most of that, but just a few things to add. We do have, as already mentioned, a couple dumpsters at 651 Pinole Shores Avenue. Those dumpsters are getting emptied daily. They are available 24/7. We do ask to only take the trash that you absolutely need to take in order to keep room for others as well. We are currently working on coordinating a town hall with Republic Services and hope to hold that in the very near future. Republic Services will be then available to answer any questions and give more information on the current situation, as well as how they are going to work with customers regarding this past service interruption. In the meantime, they sent me the following statement this evening, so I'm going to be reading the statement. Please know this is Republic Services words, not mine. Republic is incredibly proud to serve the city of Pinole. We appreciate as well as deeply share the city's concerns of the current situation. To mitigate the work stoppage, Republic Services continues to prioritize service to essential businesses and are doing everything to service residential and commercial customers as quickly as possible. We have mobilized Republic Services trained and experienced support crews to assist with collection efforts, and additional resources are being deployed each day. To help our customers through this situation, we are communicating directly with our residential and business customers and the City of Pinole in several ways. This includes robocall blast to all impacted customers with updates beginning on July 14th, 2025. We provide the City of Pinole a daily update to disseminate updates through official city channels. Service updates are posted on our Pinole-specific websites. Daily updates are sent to the city manager and city staff, sometimes multiple per day. Republic Services has partnered with the city to set up debris boxes at the city courtyard to allow customers to dispose of the trash. These drop-off services are available to Pinole customers at no charge until the work stoppage concludes. We sincerely appreciate the patience and understanding of the city and our Pinole community throughout these challenges. To clarify, they're speaking about the dumpsters that are at our second courtyard, which is at the 651 Pinole Shores Drive address I mentioned earlier. And then finally, I want to let everyone know that I will be out of the office for just over a week from July 21st through July 30th. And Chief Clavoon has graciously agreed to be acting city manager in my absence. So please reach out to her with any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney's report. Please go ahead.
Nothing to report at this time. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, checking. City Clerk, any comments, public comments on those items?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. We'll go down to item number 8, which is proclamations and presentations. Tonight we have no proclamations, so we'll go ahead to item 8B1, which is traffic-related incidents report by Police Chief Clavoon. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Society and council members. My name is Melissa Clavoon. I'm the police chief of the Pinole Police Department. And with me tonight, I have newly promoted Operations Commander Justin Rogers and our traffic officer, Amy Eubanks. And so the purpose for our presentation tonight is we want to report some data regarding traffic-related incidents for the last 6 months. So the time period that we're looking at is from January 1 through June 30th of 2025. Next slide, please. So our hope with this report is to make this presentation twice a year. That way we can provide data for the 6-month period and also start to develop some trends that will show how this data has changed from previous reporting periods and ultimately annually as we are able to report this information out. Most of the data, or I believe all the data that you're going to see tonight, comes from our RIMS CAD system, which is our records management system that the police department uses. RIMS is the way that we dispatch out calls for service. It's the way that we close out those calls, and also how we document reports that are associated to those calls. There is also something called Citizens RIMS that we're going to talk about tonight, which is a version of that records management system that's available to the public on the police department's website. And so some of the things that I'll show you tonight were taken directly from Citizens RIMS, and I'll talk about how the public can access that data if they are interested. Next slide, please. So this first data point talks about traffic collisions. And again, this is from January through June of 2025. There was a total of 64 traffic collisions, and it's broken down by month. So the first column that you see is total collisions per month. Then it's further broken down of how many of those collisions had an injury involved, How many collisions with a fatality? So for this 6-month period, there were no fatal collisions. And how many DUI collisions? One thing I will note in reviewing the data again today, I noticed that there was an error. In March, there should be 1 DUI collision, making a total of 10 for this 6-month period. So also, the next column over shows non-injury collisions. So collisions that occur without an injury. So for example, in January, there were 6 non-injury collisions. We do notate which of those are hit and run types of collisions. So we had in January 4 hit and run collisions. For the majority of hit and run collisions, these are minor collisions that occur mostly in parking lot areas. You'll see them up on the Fitzgerald corridor. So they are, taps that occur in the parking lots for the most part. We also report out vehicle versus pedestrians. We did have a total of 4 vehicle versus pedestrian incidents or collisions. Each of them resulted in no injuries. So just for comparison purposes, in last year in 2024, we did have 1 fatal collision. That was an incident that occurred at San Pablo Avenue and Oak Ridge, and the primary collision factor in that particular case was DUI and speed as well. In 2023, we did have 1 fatality, and that was a vehicle versus a pedestrian collision. And in 2022, there was no fatal collisions, but 1 with major injury resulting from a solo motorcycle incident. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about the primary collision factors that occurred in the collisions that we reported. So you can see from left to right, the most common primary collision factor is unsafe turning movement. Next common is DUI. Next was basically unsafe speeds, red light violations, unsafe starting or backing, and failing to maintain a lane. Next slide, please. Of the 64 collisions that we had during this reporting period, 26 of them occurred at intersections. And this chart shows that the majority of collisions that occurred at intersections were an intersection with San Pablo Avenue. Second, other intersections, and third is intersections on Appian Way. Next slide, please. So this heat map was taken directly from Citizens RIMS. And again, Citizen RIMS, I'll show another slide on how to access it, but basically the public can go to the police department website. They can search for either crimes or incidents like vehicle accidents within a given time frame and provide either a data point map or in this case a heat point map. And so you'll notice just based on the heat map that the majority of the collisions are occurring on our major roadways like San Pablo Avenue, along Pinole Valley Road, Appian Road, and up in the Fitzgerald intersection or Fitzgerald corridor that I mentioned. So this just gives you a visual of where those collisions occurred. Next slide, please. So Citizens RIMS, as I mentioned, this is a public-facing component of the records management system that we use. The website, there's a link. It's a little bit small on this slide, but if you go basically to the police department's website, you'll see the first icon with the handcuffs. If you click on that box, it says crime records and surveillance options. And then you click on the box with the illuminated light bar that says past activity. That will bring you to the map that I showed on the previous slide. You can select what criteria you want to look at. If you want to look at particular crimes like assaults or burglaries or traffic accidents, you can select those individually or together, and you can also put in a time range to see that activity. And by the way, it does show Hercules and San Pablo as well, since we do use the same RIM system as those agencies. So if you expand out the map, you can see all 3 cities, or you can narrow it down to certain areas of Pinole. Next slide, please. And there is on our website some tutorials on how to use the Citizen RIMs with some videos as well. So driving under the influence for the last 6 months, there were 12 arrests made for DUI-related offenses. There were 10 DUI collisions, but a total of 12 DUI arrests. And this just shows the breakdown of those arrests by month over the last 6 months. Next slide, please. And then just another map specifically showing where those DUI arrests were made, again, in very similar areas to the collisions. Next slide, please. So this slide breaks down citations. So again, during this reporting period, during the 6 months, Pinole police officers conducted 1,355 traffic stops. Of the traffic stops, 584 resulted in a citation that was issued, so that's just over 43%. Now, most of those citations are for vehicle code violations. However, there could be other citations issued for other misdemeanor or infractions, but primarily those are traffic-related citations. And we put up some information that shows what the most common citations were that were issued. Expired registration, 289 citations were issued. Headlights or tail lamps or brake lights that were inoperable, 109 citations. And then it goes down from there. Stop sign violations, speed violations, unlicensed driver, and red light violations. And there is some data on what percentage of those citations were issued by our traffic officer. We have one traffic officer for the Pinole Police Department, and that's Officer Eubanks up here today. In particular, we'll talk a little bit more about the speed violations, and because I know that that is a concern with the community about speeds. And we'll talk about what some of the restrictions are that we currently have to enforce speeding and some of our plans moving forward. Next slide, please. So another item of piece of data that we wanted to share is parking citations. So during the 6-month period, the Pinole Police Department issued 92 parking citations. This slide, I think, is also bookmarked for daylighting, and that's something that we talked about at the last council meeting. Once that ordinance becomes effective and we start contacting vehicles that are violating the new daylighting law, we can start tracking how many of those were issued warnings and also how many were issued citations on daylighting. So this slide can be a placeholder for some of that data. And I do want to make one comment that I misspoke at our last council meeting about what part of the vehicle needs to be in or out of the red curb. And I mentioned the tires, and it's in fact any portion of the vehicle. So if any part of the front of the vehicle or the rear of the vehicle falls within the red curb marking, then it technically will violate the red curb. So I just wanted to provide clarification there. Next slide, please. So when we talk about speed enforcement, 2 of the items of equipment that we rely on are LiDAR and radar. So currently, we only have 2 officers that are trained on LiDAR. We have a third manager who's trained on LiDAR, but they're not often out in the field. We have 3 handheld LiDAR devices. We also have 2 officers that are trained on radar, and we have 1 radar device, but it is very outdated. It's from 2001, and so it's not an operable piece of equipment right now. So both radar and LiDAR are different systems that use different technology to determine speed. So right out the gate, not having enough officers that are trained and not having enough equipment to enforce speed is one of the reasons why we're seeing not as high of citations being given for speeding violations. So the department really wants to prioritize officer training. And we believe we would benefit from training at least 2 or 3 more officers in using LiDAR or radar. Couple other items that I wanted to point out. We did have a reduced traffic unit staffing from January through March. So that does impact our data, and we'll see how that affects the trends when we're able to report out other reporting periods. And currently, our speed trailer is also out of service. So that's the trailer that you'll see on the side of the road park that can track speeds or also provide messages. And so we do have a plan for that as well. Next slide, please. So we have applied for 2 grants that are related to traffic. The first one is the OTS grant, or the Office of Traffic Safety, that Officer Eubanks applied for in January of 2025. We requested almost $130,000, and we received an intent to award $50,000. They received a lot of applications for the OTS grant and decided that they would try to issue as many as possible with a reduced grant award. So what we requested in that grant was some community outreach, some officer training, personnel and equipment costs for to conduct 3 DUI checkpoints, and also to purchase equipment, including a traffic motorcycle and a speed trailer to replace the one that is inoperable right now. So we're currently working to rescale the budget for that grant award, and that will be going to council in September. The other one is the Cannabis Tax Fund Grant Program. We applied for that grant in February. We requested just under $100,000, and we received an intent to award the full amount. So with that, we will be able to fund community outreach, officer training, a new traffic motorcycle, because we do not currently have an operating motorcycle, personnel and equipment costs for a DUID checkpoint, which is a driving under the influence of drugs checkpoint that we will be doing in conjunction with Hercules Police Department. And that is actually on consent for tonight. Next slide, please. And that is all I have to report. So we are here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. For questions of staff, we'll start with Councilmember Thomas, please.
Thank you. I was curious, I have seen reports, monthly reports for certain areas in unincorporated communities from the Sheriff's Department. I'm wondering how, since you worked at the Sheriff's Department, what's the difference in software that Pinol's using versus Sheriff's Department?
For collecting and reporting
collecting data, yeah.
One of the big items that the Sheriff's Office was able to contract with recently is a program called Peregrine. And Peregrine it basically brings all the data sources together where it is easier to track accurate data as much as possible from multiple sources. So, for example, the data that we pulled tonight, like the information on primary collision factors and DUI arrests, was done through RIMS, but also double checking by hand by Officer Eubanks. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty tedious process to be able to collect and report out accurate data. And so doing a monthly report would be taxing on our staff right now. But having a program in place, and we have looked and received a demo from a company called the Peregrine Company, would help facilitate that type of data collection that can be done with less staff time to get accurate data.
Okay, thank you. I would just hope that if that's something that you foresee that would work more efficiently for Pinole, that perhaps that's a, future budget item or future grant proposal. Because I have seen those reports on a monthly basis, and
Yeah.
thank you. And that's all I have.
Thanks. We'll go to Councilmember Murphy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and to your team for this report. I really appreciate it. Also, just wanted to thank you for sitting down with myself and the mayor and the city attorney and the city manager a little bit about our traffic-related incidences. This report is great. I look forward to seeing it biannually. I do want to, as I spoke to you during that meeting, speak a little bit about the California Traffic Stops Project. The San Francisco Chronicle has written several articles about our police department's focus on Black people and their traffic stops. And so you spoke a little bit about it during our private meeting, but I do want a more thorough report and comprehensive audit of what our department is doing to address that narrative that's being put out there. If that's not a true narrative, that's fine. But what we're seeing in those numbers is that we have some challenging numbers, I guess, in back of us and maybe ahead of us. These are numbers from 2023. So I'm assuming that the 2024 numbers are going to come out in September, and then we'll see 2025 numbers next September. So I just want to make sure that that's something that your office or your department is coming back to talk about soon.
Yes, so you're referring to RIPA data, or that is the data that's being collected currently
Yeah.
regarding demographics, and it's perceived demographics by the officers. So we are collecting RIPA data, and that gets entered into our RIMS system, the same system where we pulled this data. And then from there, it gets transmitted to the Department of Justice, and then the Department of Justice reports it out annually, as you were describing. So we do have the ability to pull that data. If council wanted to see more specific information regarding traffic stops and a breakdown of demographics of those traffic stops, there is a little bit of a difference between the data, the RIPA data that we have in RIMS versus what gets published by the DOJ. So there would be, there could be some small discrepancies between that data, but that is certainly something that we could provide if the council wishes for us to do in the next report.
That'd be great. I think one of the things I would be concerned, so the intent of RIPA was to kind of bring both awareness and understanding of disparities, racial disparities specifically, across law enforcement agencies in California. And so I appreciate seeing the traffic-related incidences. I want to make sure that we address those. I also want to make sure that our department is doing whatever it can to ensure that we have fair policing in our city. What we can do. So I'm not sure if that comes back at the end of the year or if that's something you can bring back intermittently between now and the end of the year. But I certainly would like to see something that centers around kind of the assessment of what you said, even the disparities that may happen in the reporting itself. But honestly, what is our department doing to ensure that implicit bias is not something that we're constantly seeing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does that look like to you?
So a couple of things. We can look at the RIPA data that I mentioned, but we can also talk about a lot of it comes by form of training that we provide to our officers, not only when they first go to the academy, but ongoing training that our officers have on an annual basis regarding implicit bias and other factors that go into their daily activities. And the RIPA data doesn't just apply to traffic stops. It applies to any contacts that our law enforcement does with individuals, whether they are dispatched to a call for service or it is an officer-initiated event. And so I think having some clarification in that is also very important, because when our officers are being dispatched to a call, they are being told, we need you to go to this location and contact the people at that spot. So they are not proactively looking for that contact. They're being directed where to go, versus a traffic stop where they are initiating that activity themselves, or a pedestrian stop if they're stopping somebody that's walking on the street rather than being in a car. So we can report out on that data, but I do think it will be important to be able to show the difference between what that activity is, whether it's dispatched or it's officer initiated. And the other big component about RIPA is what the officer is entering is their perception of race, gender, any disability. So it's all based on the officer's perception, not what the person actually identifies as or reports out as well.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. So does that mean by a certain date you all have in mind to bring that back? I think this is just a very important conversation. We still have residents who are still interested in conversing about what we're seeing in the news. I anticipate in September we're going to get a similar report, but I do want to make sure that our staff is preparing something around presentation or conversation on this.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez-Rubin.
Thank you for your report. I have several questions. Simple. They're based on your presentation. So in the table on traffic collisions, the non-injury collisions, you mentioned that most of the hit and runs are related to minor dents, an example given in parking lots. There's mentioned the pedestrians. So how are the pedestrians being injured? And the reason I ask for that is because that might be a basis for the outreach that you all will be doing, or maybe have been doing, but maybe we need more of that type. Is there any information that you have that would describe how the pedestrians are being hit, for lack of a better description? I can imagine myself crossing from one side, from where Target is, for example, to the parking lot, and something happening there, or me being a driver and backing up and not turning enough to see someone walking behind my car. So what's happening there?
Yes, so as you just spoke, that is correct. Most of the pedestrian versus vehicle collisions that we took this year were in the parking lot. So it wasn't that they were crossing a crosswalk and the driver didn't see them and they hit them. That would have been an injury collision likely, right? Because they're traveling at a high speed. Mm-hmm. These are reported as non-injuries because the individuals did not sustain injuries, which would have required them to be transported in an ambulance or seek medical care.
They were involved, though. That's why a pedestrian is identified there.
Yes,
there was a
correct.
pedestrian involved somehow, but not necessarily hit by a vehicle.
No, they were correct. They were. It's just that they didn't sustain injuries from it. So when it says vehicle versus pedestrian collision, that is a vehicle making contact with a pedestrian. But because there are no injuries, I would gather that most of them, without having the cases in front of me, right? Most of them were at very slow speed, likely in a parking lot, like you're saying, backing up or pulling out, and a pedestrian walked in front of them. They just didn't do a double check or something of that nature. But it was at such a slow speed that there were no injuries sustained.
Okay, thank you. It helps understand how they're categorized, how those situations are categorized. Thank you. With the next slide on primary collision factor, is there data that you have that includes the time of day when these collisions occur? I can think of, again, myself as a driver looking west when the sun is setting and how difficult that is for vision. So what do we know about time when these collisions occur? And if you don't have the information now, perhaps that's something would be of interest for next time around.
Yeah, we don't have that data set that we could share right now, but that is something that we could add to the next report about time of day.
Okay, and a different factor, age. Is age at all a data point that is collected with any of these incidents? And the perception of an officer is really not reliable when it comes to age. We know that.
Correct.
But,
yes, I would not rely on the RIPA data for age. So unless we were to go through each individual collision report, we don't. It is not a data point that we would be able to run easily.
In spite of the ease of running that data, would it not be informative, again, with outreach? I can see that as supporting a certain kind of outreach program for a certain age category of pedestrians or drivers. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please consider that. On the slide on Citizen Rims and the activity on the website, what are people interested in viewing? What's the experience been? And do you, can you analyze that, or would you analyze that, whether it's number of clicks or the specific pages that are opened?
I'll have to look into that. I'm not aware of any analytics that we receive from Citizen Rims, but I can see if that is something that's available on the back end for us to track. But I'm not aware that we do have that ability, but I can report back.
Okay, thank you. If it is doable to acquire that information via analytics, it could support what is reported in different ways, including what we see on PCTV. My next question was going to be, how does the information that you have from Citizen Rims mesh with what is reported on the scroll, is what it's called? If we still do that on PCTV?
So it's my understanding that Citizens Rims captures all of our calls for service for the entire day, which is the same log that goes on to PCTV. So if at the end of business day today at 11:59 hours or midnight, you go on for the whole day, you're able to see the whole days of calls for service, just like they put on PCTV. It's just a more user-friendly way of doing it on the computer.
Okay, so that posting frequency is daily then, on your computer. What about on PCTV? Same thing? Let's find out.
Yes, we can find out. I'm not
Yes.
sure how instantaneous it is being uploaded to PCTV.
In the interest of trying to have current information, I think the PCTV team is working on that. That would be something to coordinate. Thank you. On the slide about parking citations, during the reporting period, Pinole Police Department issued 92 parking citations. Pardon me if I missed this, but what type of parking citation? I imagine there are different types, not just the one where my car extended into the red area? And again,
I can speak for at least the parking citations that I've written,
okay.
at least in the last 6 months. I would say probably some of the common ones are a vehicle's parked on the roadway and maybe our community service officer drives by, sees that it's missing a plate, might give them a parking citation for missing a plate, either a front or a rear plate. Also having no tabs, expired registration. If it's parked on a roadway, that's also a reason to give a parking citation. That might be what CSOs typically do. I am a big proponent of citing for parking in a handicap spot without a placard. So a lot of my parking citations that I issue are in that type of nature. But I also have cited for just a vehicle parked on the roadway with expired registration, or missing a plate, or not having any plates at all. Those are some of the more common citations.
Okay, thank you, Officer Eubanks. What's crossing my mind is the last time I had to take a test for a driver's license. And between that time and now, there may, I don't even think about what is acceptable and not acceptable other than my annual registration, because I'm reminded of having to pay for that, and keeping that current. But again, the follow-up to my question is about opportunities for outreach. And so my last question is going to be, when you speak about outreach, with the grants that you have been awarded, and congratulations for that, and then prior to receiving the award, thank you for the effort in putting the applications together. So the kind of outreach that you plan to do with that, is it specific to a certain kind of area that you see problematic? And if so, what is that?
Yes, so the grant is very clear in what we are to be doing outreach for. So these grants are related to DUIs and DUIDs. So our outreach is going to be, the slogans you guys probably have heard is drive high, get a DUI. That type of outreach. Our outreach is predominantly for the cannabis grant that we received. The outreach that we're required to do is to reach out to I don't want to say children, juveniles, high schoolers, kids who have gotten their licenses and think it's cool to vape or have maybe started using cannabis unlawfully, and kind of reaching out to that group. That's just based on the grant, but that's not to say that we're not going to reach out to the community as a whole.
Thank you. Those were my questions.
Great, thank you, and thanks for your presentation, and of course, all the work you do. It's not easy work. It's definitely dangerous work, but it's necessary work, so we appreciate it. In the City Council, I want to thank Councilman Murphy for his comments about RIPA data. There's a reason why the state has a RIPA board, and that kind of data is because it had been a problem in California and continues to be. So looking forward to more information about that. Of course, the optics are not very good in terms of what the Chronicle was reporting. The reality, if that's true, is even worse, right? So I feel like all of us in a room here are committed to tackling that problem together collaboratively. So thank you for doing some research on that and meeting with us about that. First question, and it was on a slide you had about DUI checkpoints, and you mentioned we received 2 grants to help fund that type of work. So we will be seeing more DUI checkpoints in Pinole in the next year and the next few years. Is that correct?
Yes, so the cannabis grant, we requested 1 DUID checkpoint. That is the one in conjunction with Hercules PD. So that was a fully funded grant. The Office of Traffic Safety, the OTS grant, we requested 3 DUI checkpoints. That one we only received about a third of the funding, or a little more than a third of the funding. So we are going to have to scale back. Most likely we will be able to conduct 1 DUI checkpoint. They are personnel heavy, and so the grant covers the overtime costs for those events. So instead of seeing 3, we would have loved to have done 3 with the full funding, but it'll probably be more like 1. So at least there will be 2. 1 primarily focused on driving under the influence and alcohol, and 1 focused more on the driving under the influence of drugs that we will be seeing shortly.
Got it. And when was the last time we had a DUI checkpoint in Pinole? It's been a few years, or?
Can you speak to that?
The last time we had the OTS grant, which I believe was 2016, and we did 2 DUI checkpoints during that grant. We were supposed to do 3, but unfortunately we were falling short on staff and couldn't put the numbers together to get that 3rd one done.
Gotcha. Thank you. It's almost a decade. So we're very glad to see this funding come through and for us to utilize that. I want to talk about distracted driving. We had a very unfortunate and high-profile death that occurred here in San Pablo Avenue and Tennant Avenue with a community member from St. Joseph's Church. And I know the person who was driving was distracted. And so I'm curious how you, as a police department, enforce, of course, folks on the phone while driving, but also the new no-touch laws that have gone into effect in California. When you patrol, how do you sort of enforce that and surveil that?
Yeah, those are my favorite to get people on their phones. Typically, when I'm working a stop sign or an intersection, I post up at the stop sign. Of course, I'm looking for stop sign violations, but that's the best opportunity to also catch people on their phones, right? Oftentimes they don't see me at the stop sign that I'm working, and then they drive past with their phone directly in their hands. And so that is the best way to capture those violators is working a stop sign. Of course, there has been times where I drive past, and as I look over, I see them on the phone, much like you guys all do, in which case I slow down and get behind them and pull them over. The easiest way is to capture them when we are stationary, but then again, that requires us to stay stationary for a certain amount of time in order to, potentially pull over 1 or 2 people. But I do cite for that often.
Thank you, and forgive me if I missed it in the presentation here. How many citations do you give, maybe in the past 6 months on?
I'd have to look it up. Yeah, I don't have the data points. Sorry.
Thank you. One of the slides you showed number of citations for expired registration being 289, and speed violations only 29. Is there a reason for a discrepancy? Just wondering about that.
So kind of what I was speaking to earlier about the ability to cite for speeding violations requires the training and the equipment use of our officers. And so we are undertrained and under-equipped to be able to cite for those speeding violations. Officer Eubanks is trained and equipped to do that. One note on one of the slides was she was out for 3 months during this reporting period. So we did have a reduction in some of the enforcement that I think you'll see on the next reporting period, having her here for the full 6-month period. But the speed citations are definitely inhibited by the training and the equipment that we are trying to use the grant funding to be able to bring that up again and hopefully get 2 to 3 more officers trained to be able to use the LiDAR radar for that purpose.
Got it. Thank you. And on a regular day, how many officers would you say are somewhere and surveilling with LiDAR in a certain corridor? Or
Just our one traffic officer.
just one traffic officer at this point is surveilling speed. And is there a certain corridor that you all focus on for speed?
Yes. So I have been focusing on San Pablo Avenue recently, mainly because there's a specific vehicle code violation for speeding in downtown. So that's an easy thing to cite for. It's 25 in all business districts in all cities. But also because knowing that we were dropping our speed limit on San Pablo Avenue. So like today, I think I pulled over 10 cars and gave them all warnings because our speed limit has been lowered. So my focus is also in areas where collisions occur, right? So in those same areas that we saw on the heat map, Pinole Valley Road, Appian, San Pablo, all of our main thoroughfares are the areas in which I am patrolling for moving violations such as speed or distracted driving or stop sign red light violations, all of those because they are primary collision factors.
Thank you. It's my other question too. New speed limits. Do you know how many of those speed signs have been put up in the areas where we have approved those speed limit changes at this point in time?
Yes. So I just kind of did a survey. It's a good timing for that. I did my own little independent survey this morning. We have the same speed limit signs up that we've always had up and down San Pablo Avenue, although headed eastbound San Pablo Avenue, I think we need a few more speed limit signs. They're few and far between from Pinole Shores headed into town. I think we need a couple of more on that side. But there are plenty of 25-mile-an-hour signs on the north shoulder of San Pablo as you head towards San Pablo.
Gotcha. And the section you mentioned, eastbound, is from Pinole Shores Drive to Sunnyview. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And we reduced that to 30 miles per hour. 30 miles per hour. Okay.
Correct.
That's going to be really important to enforce because of the veterans housing we now have, as well as the senior housing. And I have seen it time and time again that seniors are crossing the road, not even in crosswalks, which is more of a conversation to have with the property managers there. I think one other question I have here is, just a statement, but the speeding problem here in Pinole is really bad. It's really bad. On just a random Thursday, I parked my car on a Thursday night outside of East Bay Coffee and just watched, because I'm that kind of person. But it was really frequent, where cars were going well above the normal rate of speed there. And so I'm glad to hear that we're doing more enforcement in that section. I've gotten emails and texts from constituents, text me pictures of cars flipped over for some reason on San Pablo Avenue. That's a 25-mile-per-hour corridor. How that happens, I don't know, but it's a death waiting to happen, unfortunately. In the West Contra Costa Transportation Commission, which I'm a representative of, one thing that we're looking at right now and preparing for is speed cameras. So right now in California, there are a few cities, major cities like San Francisco, Long Beach, Los Angeles, who employ or utilize speed cameras. And if that legislation ever is going to be considered for other cities, I'm happy to support that, because that's really something that's a missing piece for our department here. The LiDAR training equipment, is that a funding issue or is that a capacity issue? I'm trying to see the problem there.
I think it's a couple reasons. One being capacity. equipment is not so much the issue, but also when it comes to the training, there are only a few of them per year. So we've looked into a couple options, whether it be sending officers off to get trained or bringing someone in to do the training in kind of a more mass scale. But unfortunately, the availability of the people is, we're kind of hinging on their availability.
Got it. So not a funding issue, but it's more of a limited trainings available per year. But at this point in time, we're looking for 2 or 3 more officers trained for LiDAR.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions from the council before we move ahead?
Through the chair, just,
Sure.
I thought your next question to Officer Eubanks was what's happening on San Pablo in your absence? So, yes, what is happening on San Pablo in your absence? I'm taking away that you are a primary person conducting the citations. So in your absence, we just don't capture violators, right? I also have to comment that it's so easy to go beyond 25 or 30, especially in a newer car where they're just so smooth. And so it requires that as drivers, again, ongoing awareness of that. It gets back to behavior, human behavior, and how we have to each take responsibility for that when we can. And so as council members, I think we would encourage everyone to take a look, rather than, definitely not at their cell phone while they're driving, but at their dashboard, and notice also the movement at the accelerator. It just takes a little tap to get beyond that 25 and 30 miles per hour.
Especially EVs. And that's a good point there. And I know we're talking about enforcement, majority of this conversation, but like you were saying, the infrastructure that we have right now in Pinole allows for drivers to want to go faster. And that's not a failure of the police at all. It's a failure of, I think, just past councils, this council leadership, and not prioritizing having those types of infrastructure that decreases the ability of drivers to actually slow down naturally. So that's going to be a focus for us as we move forward. Any public comments, City Clerk?
There are no public comments.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council. Any other comments at all before we move on? If not, thank you again for your work. Really appreciate it and continue conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next and final presentation is the California lineage-based reparations and the California Reparations Commission recommendation. This presentation has actually been canceled due to the presenter no longer being available, so we'll be looking into possible dates in September. That being said, we'll move on to item number 9, consent calendar. City Clerk, do we have any public comment on the items here?
Thank you, Mayor. We do. We have Rafael Menes, who would like to speak on item 9C, 9D, 9I, and 9M.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public. Is audio working? Okay. My name is Rafael Menes. I'm a resident of Pinole, and for item 9C, I'm concerned about a few things in this item. Most fundamentally, I'm concerned about the authority to revise the retention terms before documents are destroyed being shifted from being a council level decision to being a staff level decision. I recognize that it may be common practice in the state of California, but I think given the Brown Act, that accountability for deciding policy decisions like what gets kept and how long it gets kept for should remain at the council level, just as a policy argument. And more broadly, I'm also concerned about the fact that deletion doesn't just mean getting rid of physical files, but it also means destroying digital copies as well. So if the city's made like one digital backup of a thing and they already shredded the physical file to save space, great. But then when it comes time for deletion of that file, then there aren't going to be any records of it unless somebody saved a copy of it elsewhere. And I know that for some of the committees, there's longer durations of keeping things like the agenda packets for the city council. I think it's 15 years. For the planning commission, I think it's 15 years. But sometimes we need to go back farther than that, particularly on the Planning Commission, just to see things that have happened farther back, review data. I mean, 15 years prior to now is 2010, which means even just looking at stuff the city of Pinole was doing during the Great Recession of 08, 09, those documents would be deleted under this policy. So I'm speaking tonight in opposition to this item. I think that in particular, the agenda packets need to be kept at least in a digital format for a longer period of time for the purposes of historical reference, just as the minutes are kept permanently for historical reference. And more fundamentally, that shifting the discretion over which items to keep and how long they're kept for from being a policy and council level decision to being an administrative and staff level decision is not the correct way to go. Thank you. So that's my comments on 9C. Next, on item 9D, the memorandum of understanding, I want to say that I'm happy that the cities managed to mutually agree with the bargaining units discussed in the memorandas here that there will be a retiree medical committee to explore more sustainable plan options. One of the major fiscal risks the city is going to be facing over the next decade or so is going to be the inevitable rise in retiree healthcare contributions given our current obligations. So I'm glad to hear that the city and the unions that it is bargaining with are starting to properly consider this problem now and not, say, in 2030. So for the strategic plan item, which I believe is item 9I, this is more just stylistic feedback. Some of the in-progress items are marked in yellow and some are marked in green. And that's even for items that are completed but still in progress or in progress but still in progress. Like, for example, on page number 435, strategy 1's noted as green in progress because there's multiple processes. And strategy number 2 is yellow in progress because it's ongoing. But then if you go down to page number 441, strategy number 6, develop a comprehensive information technology strategic plan. That's noted down as complete, but it's marked in yellow. And strategy number 7, develop an interagency legislative advocacy program, is marked as in progress in yellow. Strategy number 8, explore the use of the government access channel PCTV to implement strategic communication plan, is marked as in progress and green. So I'm not quite clear whether it's just sort of typographical error when yellow or green is used, or whether there's a deeper meaning behind yellow and green being used for some in-progress items and some complete items and not for other ones, but figured that was worth highlighting. And then for item 9M, I'm pleased that the city is applying for this grant to potentially fund renovations for the caretaker's house and the dog park, which I know has been a particular point of concern for several of our community members, and I wanted to highlight that for them in case they didn't have a look at it on the consent calendar. So I'm glad to see the city applying for this, and I hope that it is successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
There are no other public comments?
Okay, with no other public comments, any council members would like to pull items from the consent calendar?
I think I would just like to see a response on the retention, response to the comments that were made.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the comments, and I do understand the concern. In the report, it is mentioned that the resolution that's adopted could shift the authority from the city council to staff to make updates to the retention schedule. The idea behind that is that a lot of the changes that we see are legally mandated, and so what it calls for is a signature by the city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager in those cases where we could then make those updates without bringing a full update to council. The council could evaluate that, and if we wanted to continue to have every update come to the city council, we could certainly do that. This is more about efficiency and just making sure that we're making updates in a timely way. Any significant update that would be, how should I say, a change to practice that might be more controversial or where we felt that council might want to weigh in a little bit more, that would come back to council for further review. But anything that was a legal change, mandated by government code, these are the types of changes that we're talking about. I do want to also point out for the agenda packets, it was mentioned by the speaker that we, keeping the agenda packets for a longer amount of time might be beneficial, and that actually is included on page CC1. Our agenda packets for City Council would be kept permanently because we are storing those. They're actually created electronically and then stored electronically. So I'm very happy to answer and maybe work with the speaker on any additional questions that he has or concerns about the schedule.
Thank you. And Council Murphy.
Mayor, I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second?
Right, motion second. City Clerk, please call roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Toms.
Aye.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Tave is not here, so that's a no vote, or absent vote, and then Mayor Sasai.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item 10, which is public hearings, and we have one item. It's item 10A, which is to consider adopting a resolution approving the issuance of the California Municipal Finance Authority qualified 501c3 bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $65 million for the purpose of financing or refinancing the acquisition, rehabilitation, improvement, and equipping of Bayside apartment homes and certain other matters relating thereto. And now that I'm done with that very long sentence, Director Whalen, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm your Community Development Director, Lily Whalen. So we're here this evening to conduct a public hearing pursuant to the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA. TEFRA requires a public hearing be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction in which a project to be financed with tax-exempt financing is located, and that governing body approved the proposed financing. So Step Up Housing has asked that the California Municipal Finance Authority, or the CMFA, be the issuer of tax-exempt financing in amount not to exceed $65 million to finance or refinance the acquisition, rehabilitation, improvement, and equipping of a multifamily rental property located at 530 Sunnyview Drive in Pinole. The CMFA is a joint powers authority formed to assist local governments, nonprofit organizations, and businesses with the issuance of both taxable and tax-exempt bonds, or tax-exempt debt. The debt to be issued by the CMFA will be the sole responsibility of the borrower, and the City of Pinole will have no financial or legal obligations or responsibilities with regard to the repayment of the debt. All financing documents will carry disclaimers that the loan is not an obligation of the city. The city will also bear no costs in the issuance of the proposed debt. And in fact, when we did a TEFRA hearing a few years ago for the Saha project, we did actually receive a portion of the issuance fees as well. And we are expecting to receive that in this case as well if the council does adopt the resolution. So with that, it's recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the CMFA for the benefit of the borrower. Such adoption is solely for the purposes of satisfying the requirements of TEFRA, the code, and the California Government Code Section 6500. And that concludes my presentation. We do have gentlemen in the back here, representatives from the CMFA, and then also a representative from Step Up Housing, if the council has any questions.
Thank you, Director Whalen. Any questions from the council to staff? Yes, Councilor Toms.
Thank you for the report. Can you do a recap of how many of the units are currently market rate, and with the refinance, if any of them will be restricted affordable?
So my understanding is that all of the units currently are market rate. There was a covenant that expired, I believe, in 2018, if I'm correct. And so all of them are market rate. My understanding is all of them will be affordable, but that should be clarified with the borrower.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Councilmember Martinez-Rubin?
Related to Councilmember Tom's question is, how many units are we talking about at what different levels of affordability?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. And I think there's 148 units, or 44 units, but that could also be clarified.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll open the public hearing. City Clerk, any comments?
Yes, thank you. Chris Palomo.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'd like to first thank you guys for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Chris Palomo. I'm a senior field rep with the NorCal Carpenters Union at a local 152 in Martinez, representing Contra Costa County. I'm here to ask the question, with this financing, because I know it's tax exempt, is there going to be labor standards attached to this project? Because, with housing is critical. I support it. I think we definitely need it, but not at the expense of the workers. Are the workers being exploited, right? Projects like the Bayside Apartments, they should be built by workers not only being paid prevailing wages, but by workers provided health care, being trained through state certified apprenticeship programs, and protected by enforceable labor standards. Without these standards, we risk seeing tax advanced projects being built by low road contractors using unskilled or underpaid labor with no investment in our workforce or long-term economic stability. I know you brought up the Saha project earlier, so that project right there is a prime example. The general contractor on that project, as well as the developer, is involved with an active ongoing labor dispute with us with the Carpenters Union. They use subcontractors that one of them is in a class action lawsuit for the unfilled pay of overtime, not getting paid their correct wages, getting worked through breaks. There's a few more on there that I forgot, but it's when there's no labor standards, especially in housing projects. I don't know why it's on housing projects, but we see it a lot. Housing projects are, unfortunately, they're crime scenes. And I don't want to see that come to the city of Pinole. And so I would like to see labor standards attached to this project. I mean, what's the benefit to the city if you're having a low road contractor come in here and build at the exploit of the workforce that, lives here? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments, City Clerk?
There are no more public
All right,
comments.
with no other public comments, we'll close public hearing. And I'd like, if Director Welling can answer the question about labor standards, or any representative.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Ben Barker. I'm with the California Municipal Finance Authority. This is already an existing project. Any prevailing or union labor that is required would be used on the project, but there's no substantial rehab that's going to be taking place on the project like there would be with the Saha project or other new construction projects.
Thank you.
Did you want your questions answered on the unit mix?
Yes, if you can, please.
Yes, please, and also a follow-up to a comment that you just made. Thank you.
So the units will be 100% affordable. Again, under federal tax code, it's 60% of the units at 40% AMI or 20% of the units at 50% AMI. In this case, I think it'll be a mix of units from 60 to up to 80% AMI.
Okay. Did you have something else? I just don't want to forget. I made a little note.
Okay.
You said there will be no so it's not number of units, but in response to the question about labor standards, there will be no substantial rehab.
Right.
When
And that means building, new roofs, building new units, things like that. That's substantial rehab that would require, in some cases, union or prevailing wage.
Okay.
There will be, I'm sure there will be rehab where there is going to be CapEx that'll be on the property, but that is part of once they purchase the project and they go in and go through the site and see what needs to happen on the project.
The reason I raise my eyebrows, which you can't see beyond my glass, but
I can't see anything.
It just made me wonder, with $65 million financing, no substantial rehab doesn't somehow, in my mind, jive.
Do you want to come and talk about the?
So help me understand that.
So I think the term substantial rehab in this case is a technical term, as opposed to like, you would consider a lot of rehab. And so Mike can come up and talk about the rehab work that'll be done.
Hello, my name is Michael Potter. I am the chair of the board of Step Up Housing. We're an organization formed in 2021 to create and preserve affordable housing. With respect to this project, the max amount for the resolution of the bonds regard $65 million. That's kind of the outside limit. With respect to the actual bonds issuance, it was going to be closer to 50 million. And of that, a large portion goes to the purchase price. The other goes to actually reserves that we're holding with respect to payment of debt and making sure there's future capital improvements that need to be done. Say a roof has to be replaced or something, we want reserves for that. But a lot of that money will not be spent. We do plan to make a $3 million with respect to improvements, but a lot of those improvements will go to, say, renovating certain units, or if there's a problem with the asphalt, recovering the asphalt to the extent that some of maybe the railings on the balconies to be replaced. Those actually add up quite quickly, and so we ask for the bonds and borrow the money and set that as reserves to pay for those things. If I could also address another question, just to make sure we're correct with respect to the number of units that will be restricted. 75% of the project will now be restricted units. Of that 75%, even though Ben listed down the requirements from the Internal Revenue Code, the plan will be 20% of the units will be restricted with respect to tenants making 50% AMI. That's an income restriction or also a rent restriction. And then another 55% for tenants at 80% AMI, both are rent and income restriction. So altogether, that would be 75% of the project. Okay.
Thank you for helping me understand how the financing will be used.
Okay.
It makes a big difference when we see just the one number and not understanding that there are going to be reserves for future, for maintenance. And I imagine also to help offset the cost of the tenants when major jobs have to be done, like roofing, for example, which tends to be a big one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Sir, can you speak to, this is a great project. Thank you so much for coming to us to speak about it today. Can you, you spoke a little bit quickly, but how are you breaking down the 65 million? You said part of it is going to be to purchase you kind of broke down something, but I didn't hear you. It was kind of low.
The resolution is up to 65 million.
Sure.
The actual amount will be, get this right, 49.2 million. And of that 49.2 million, we'll put 39.9 million will go to the actual purchase price. Plus we have to pay for, closing costs, title insurance, with respect to the bonds. We've got a number of lawyers. Doing a bond execution is very expensive with respect to that. We have to pay an investment banker. And then what we also do is we borrow enough money that we set in reserves. Some of those reserves will never be spent. They'll be actually put in an investment account and held as additional collateral with respect to the bonds. A bond is just a loan. Those loans are already pre-sold through the capital markets. But all of this, it all happens at once at closing.
Okay. And what say you to those of our community that are interested in, quality labor standards? There obviously is a public comment here. The project seems wonderful, but it seems like this is a conversation that's happening across California. So I'm just wondering, how are you, as a developer, thinking about those things? How are you ensuring fair labor standards in your company?
With respect to, I'm sorry, need a little more clarification.
How, to my question or to the concern?
To your question, I didn't understand.
How are you ensuring fair labor standards in your company?
Okay, perfect. Two things. If I could ask my asset manager to come down here, can actually provide some additional information. And by the way, you referred to me as a developer. We're not a developer. We're a nonprofit owner of affordable housing. So the difference, we're not building affordable housing. We're actually creating it through the market. So thank you.
You're still growing and developing our city.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
All right. This is, he can introduce himself with respect to, he does our asset management with respect to all of our projects. Thank you.
Hi, David Feinberg with SAC Capital Partners. We're partnering with Step Up Housing on the acquisition and renovation of the Bayside Apartment project. As far as answering the fair labor, as Mike mentioned, we're not going to be doing a huge renovation of this project. We're sort of doing things as is. We have I think a total renovation of $3 million that's spread out over 10 years, and it's really kind of as needed. So no, like I said, major projects at the front. But as we do, we work with qualified labor. We're an owner of 3,000 apartments up and down the West Coast, and we open it up. I'm not the expert on our capital improvements team, but like I say, we use fair labor. We use qualified. We open up to open bidding. So, like I said, this isn't going to be a huge renovation, and I think we're the projects that we do use, we have local GCs that we partner with.
And how do you ensure fair labor standards for your projects?
We verify that that they're bonded, contracted, that they're utilizing fair labor. Like I said, I'm not the expert on that, but
So there are certain requirements when you do use prevailing wage and union labor on affordable housing projects. This project doesn't qualify under that blanket umbrella because it's not a new construction or it's not being constructed. If you are going out and bidding for a brand new roof or bidding for all kinds of large renovations, then it could qualify. But right now, just the renovation that's being done, this is small carpentry work, just small renovation. So this would not qualify under union labor or prevailing wage type labor. This would be more like the handyman on site doing the work on the project. So there's not an overall union labor that's going to come in and remodel the project because the project doesn't need that kind of work done on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions?
Just, when AMI is mentioned, I'd like to understand what it is in actual numbers, because that's what the public knows,
Sure.
Annual income level. So correct me if I'm wrong, but just going to Contra Costa, a source in Contra Costa, in 2025 for a family of 4, that's $159,800. So when you say 20% of the units would be at 50% AMI, am I accurate in understanding that 50% of the units would be for families that have up to an income of a family of 4 with an income up to $79,900?
Yeah, so HUD publishes the area median income numbers every year. Unfortunately, it's weird math that I've been doing this 20 years and don't know where they're getting a lot of their numbers, but there are these track numbers that are published every year, and that's how you figure out the affordability levels. In the project, there'll be a regulatory agreement that's recorded on the property, and the regulatory agreement will codify what units and what the AMI levels will be in those units. And so there'll be a certain amount at 50% or a certain, like you said, up to 80%. And that'll be codified in the regulatory agreement.
Thank you. Using 2025 figures?
So yes, it'll be those AMI levels. The rent is figured out every year by HUD, and we get those new rent levels every single year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other discussion, motions from the council at this point in time? Right, so there is recommended action here. Looking for a motion, if we have any here.
I'll move that we adopt the resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the California Municipal Financing Authority for the benefit of Step Up Housing, a California nonprofit public benefit corporation through a special purpose entity to provide for the financing of the project. Such adoption is solely and for the purpose of satisfying the requirements of TEFRA, the code of the California Government Code Section 6500 and following.
Thank you. I'll second that. Any discussion? Going once and twice. City Clerk, please call roll.
Councilmember Toms.
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tave is absent. Mayor Sassai.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Any other discussion or anything for this item? If there's none, then we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, no, please go ahead. Yeah, please. Oh, okay. Well, let's all move on then. That being said, we have no old or new business here tonight, and so we'll go to our last citizens to be heard. City Clerk, any comments?
Yes, Rafael Menes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. It feels a bit strange to be making the final citizens to be heard comment before 8 p.m. Pacific. So I have a few comments I'd like to make. First off, with regards to COVID-19 rates in the state of California, and more particularly in our region, it looks like they've leveled off somewhat. It's at moderate. It looks like it's been at moderate since about the start of July. But we still have at least one instance of very high in a nearby wastewater treatment plant. So I would continue to urge people to wear masks in crowded indoor areas and to get the booster shot if it is available to you. Secondly, I'd like to mention that there's going to be a protest on the overpass between Appian and I-80 this Thursday from 5 to 6:15 p.m. in honor of the late John Lewis and bringing good trouble, as it were. Good Trouble Lives On is the title of that. And if you would like to sign up for the protest, there's a hyperlink. We'll actually copy it up properly. Well, you can find it at mobilize.us/john-lewis-actions/event/8099993. That's 3 9s. And I think that if you support being able to protest in the future, now would be a good time to stand up and continue to argue for that. And finally, at the last council meeting, I wished everybody a happy 4th of July, but I didn't go into more depth about why I wish that. I'd like to do that now. Because I think it's important to remember what it says in the Declaration of Independence, you know, why we declared independence in the first place. And what it says is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, but they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any foreign government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience have shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Menace. That's your 3 minutes. We appreciate it. And we'll follow up with you. City Clerk, do we have any other public comments tonight?
There are no more public comments.
All right, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end. Right now it's 7:42 p.m., so we'll adjourn the meeting to the regular City Council meeting of September 2nd in remembrance of Amber Swartz. Have a good evening.